prayer, and I will have it right up here on the screen, and then we'll continue on. So let's open with prayer. There we go. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Our call to worship this morning is from the book of James, James chapter 4, verses 13 through 16. The Word of God tells us, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. You do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You're just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do all this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance, and all such boasting is evil."
Rejoice, ye pure in heart. Rejoice, give thanks and sing. Your festal banner wave on high, the cross of Christ your King. Rejoice, give thanks and sing. Bright youth and snow-crowned age, strong men and maidens fair, raise high your free exalting song, God's wondrous praise declare. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing. With all the angel choirs, with all the saints on earth, pour out the strains of joy and bliss, true rapture, noblest mirth. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing. Yes, on through life's long path, still chanting as we go, from youth to age, by night and day, in gladness and in woe. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing. Still lift your standard high, still march in firm array, as warriors through the darkness toil, till dawns the golden day. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing.
O Lord, how my adversaries have increased. Many are rising up against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no deliverance for him in God. Selah. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the one who lifts my head. I was crying to the Lord, and with my voice, and he answered me from his holy mountain. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord sustains me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people who have set themselves against me round about. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God. For you have smitten all my enemies on the cheek. You have shattered the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessings upon your people. Selah. May the Lord.
My faith has found a resting place, not in device nor creed. I trust the ever-living one, his wounds for me shall bleed. I need no other argument, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus
When I was looking at this chicken, I was thinking this is the perfect intro for what we're going to look at in Psalm 4, because many of us feel like the chicken. Many of us go to work or home, and we feel like we are getting the egg squeezed out of us. And that is a common occurrence during every phase and stage of life. It's called stress. We feel like we're caught between a relational rock and a hard place. And what we have here in David's opening, or one of his opening Psalms, Psalm 4, is a cry for help, a plea. This whole sermon series that we're going to be exploring over the next several weeks is called The Song of a Broken Soul. And throughout the Psalms, David cries out to God and reflects upon a variety of problems, a variety of tragedies, a variety of struggles that he is facing. He's battling the blues on a lot of levels. In fact, Willie Dixon, a famous blues artist from Chicago, once wrote this: "Blues is the true facts of life expressed in words and in songs." And David did just that in Psalm 4. I'll pull up the psalm for us here, which tells us this: "Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. O sons of men, how long will my honor become a reproach? How long will you love what is worthless and aim at deception? But know that the Lord has set apart the godly man for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. Meditate in your heart upon your bed and be still. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and trust in the Lord. Many are saying, who will show us any good? Lift up the light of your countenance upon us, O Lord. You have put gladness in my heart more than when there's grain and new wine abound. In peace I will both lie down and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." And we'll stop there. What we find here in this passage is really a petition, a reflection, and then an application. David cries out with all of his heart. He pours himself before the Lord. He is in a state of brokenness. And that is a state that many of us understand and can identify with. He's seeking an answer. He's in a state of distress. We don't have the particulars, but we know he's like the chicken. Because the idea of distress in Hebrew carries with it the idea of being caught between what? A rock and a hard spot. Being squeezed, being mushed together. Not feeling like you have any way out. And David is crying from the depth of his soul that I am stuck. I am hurting. I am alone. And there has been no relief in sight. And it is out of the depth of his pain that he writes this psalm. And he appeals not only to the righteousness of God, to the goodness of God, but he's appealing to the mercy of God, knowing that the only way out of this mess, the only way he is going to fix the squeeze, is not to fix it alone or by himself, but that God is going to have to intervene in his life. Notice in the next couple of verses, he said, how long? How long? When is this going to end? And this theme will reoccur throughout the course of this study as we look at some of David's struggles. He repeatedly asks the question, when? When will you relieve me? When will you intervene? When will you show up and do anything? Because he's wrestling so with the pain and the distress. Believers are going to face the same. This is not an isolated incident for David. This is not an isolated incident in the course of human history. All of us are going to go through periods of time where we may face false accusations, because that's what we believe David is going through. Somebody's slandering him. Somebody's saying something that has no substance to it. Somebody's maligning his name, and he's at the brunt of it, struggling. Perhaps it's disrespect. Perhaps you've made a mistake. Perhaps there has been a moment in your life where you have blundered and people are exploiting that and not letting you forget your past. And they bring it up over and over and over again. Perhaps you feel invalidated. Nobody listens to you. You walk into a meeting. You walk into your home. You speak to your children. You speak to your husband. You speak to your wife. You speak to your family. And everything goes in one ear and out the other. Perhaps you've been ignored. Perhaps there's somebody out there who has been exceptionally selfish with their time, with their money, with their words. And you have been at the brunt of it. James asks the question, what causes fights and quarrels among us? Doesn't it stem from what? The battles of desire that stew within us. Every one of us in this room could probably recollect a time in life when we have been hurt by someone else's selfish act. Perhaps people are complaining about you, whining, constantly looking at the negative. How many of you have walked into work and you have been putting in a full week? You've been trying your best, and there's that one mistake that gets made, and that's what everybody talks about. This sense of distress, feeling like we're caught between a rock and a hard spot, is exactly what David is expressing to the Lord. And we find a reoccurring theme in the Psalms, which will be part of this series as well. Psalm 62 says it beautifully. Pour out your heart before the Lord and know that God is our refuge. We open here with this exhortation, this example. Pour out your heart before God. Number 2, we find here, he says, but know, here's the theology of the poem, know that the Lord has set apart godly men for himself. In other words, God has a plan. God has a purpose. God is in the midst of the storm. If God has a plan for your life and for my life and for David's life, he is orchestrating things in time and space according to that good plan. And one of the things we lose sight of when we're hurting, especially when the soul is broken, when we're laying up at night stressed, feeling like we're caught between a rock and a hard spot, what we end up asking ourselves over and over again is, where's the good? Well, it even crops up here in the psalm. People are saying, well, where's the good? I don't see any good coming out of this. And this is where the eyes of faith need to be turned on. God has a plan, God has a purpose. And he is motivated and moved by that. His desire for you and for me as followers of Jesus Christ is not necessarily our personal happiness. He doesn't wake up and say, oh, how could I make Dave smile today? His purpose is our holiness. Because without holiness, Hebrews says, no one will see God. The whole reason Jesus came, died, and rose 3 days later was so that we could find forgiveness and reconciliation, and that a restoration process with God would commence. And that restoration process involves the metamorphosis of me and of you to change us from the inside out so that we would be different, so that we would think differently, we would believe differently, we'd have different values and priorities, we would treat one another differently, we would speak differently, we would act differently. We're not meant to be stagnant creatures who sit in our pew year after year and never change. God has intentionally designed life to make it uncomfortable for us so that we might grow and change and be different. And he brings us through difficult moments these seasons of brokenness to reshape us and refine us and recraft us into the image of His Son, and it's part of His plan. And this is where David needs to rest. We move on finally to this application. There's 3 exhortations that crop up in the text. Verse 4 says, "Tremble before Him." Certain translations may say, "Do not be angry," or "get rid of your anger." The picture here is to, have you ever seen somebody that gets so worked up, they're so jacked up, they are so mad that they're shaking, fists raging? I've seen this occur, and you have as well. Maybe you have been the one. And David realizes that he must deal with his anger. There's bitterness. There's animosity. It's keeping him up at night. He's frustrated. He's confused. And he's crying out to God. And it tells us here, "Tremble and do not sin." The book of Ephesians says, "Do not let the sun go down on your anger." Hebrews says, "Get rid of any bitter root that's in you." Why? It's going to tear you apart. It's going to destroy your soul. It's going to chew you up. It's going to consume your thoughts. It's going to keep you up at night. You're going to get stomach ulcers and have heart issues, headaches. This is what happens when we allow anger to fester deep within the recess of our soul. And David says it's got to be dealt with. You've got to let it go. And the only way that happens is if you look down the next verse. If he stopped there, we'd be left high and dry. But when you go to the next verse, he says this, "Offer the sacrifices of righteousness." In other words, he's saying, worship. Another theme that we're going to see throughout the course of this study. Worship. The definition of worship in Hebrew is to bow, to submit, to give. Romans 12:1 says this, "In view of God's mercy, offer yourselves as living sacrifices, holy, pleasing, and acceptable. This is your spiritual act of worship." And what David is saying here, if you're going to get rid of the anger, the way that occurs is you submit to God's perfect plan. And you rest in that. And you accept that as His particular will. That somehow or another, whoever this culprit is, most believe it was Absalom, his own son, who was rebelling against him and giving him a hard time. Whatever the case may be, David had to recognize that God was working even through this horrible situation where there's no evident good, that in the end God would work some sense of good. And worship brings us to that place. And then finally he says what? Trust in the Lord. And when that happens, God's light and face shines upon. When that occurs, the blessing is triggered. We now walk by faith, not by sight. We now accept God's will. We now rest in God's will. We now recognize that God is orchestrating all events, including the difficult ones, together for good. J.R. Tolkien once wrote this, "There is a grief that does not darken the heart, but teaches us wisdom." Many of us this morning are experiencing that grief. Many of us this morning have been broken by circumstances, by health problems, financial problems, relational issues, too much at work. We're under the weight of life. And what God is calling us to do, and I want to direct your attention over here, is to let something go. This is how a lot of you walked into church this morning. Carrying your baggage. You walk down the street, you're carrying your baggage. You walked into your home, you were carrying your baggage. You went to work again and you had the baggage. You came back to church again and you still had your baggage. And then you wonder, why in the world am I so tired? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel anxious? Why do I feel... Because you're carrying this stuff around. And many of us travel through life for years with old frustrations, with old bitter roots, with old wounds, and we've been carrying this baggage. And what does the Bible tell us? Pour your heart out before the Lord. Cast your care upon Him. Let it go. That's what He wants. To let it go. In a few moments, we're going to celebrate the Lord's Supper. And before we come to the table, we are called to examine our conscience, to take a good hard look at the soul. And my question to you this morning is, what did you carry into church this morning? What pain? What anguish? What bitterness? What heavy weight were you and have you been carrying all along that you need to let go? Your world may have been flipped upside down. You may have had hopes and dreams that have been shattered. You've had expectations perhaps for your children or your marriage, your spouse, your job, your business you wanted to start that never got off the ground. You may have had all sorts of things in your life just fall flat. And you're walking around feeling like a failure and a loser. And the one that you're beating up, the one you're struggling with this morning, maybe isn't the person sitting next to you, it's the one that's looking back at you in the mirror. And the Scriptures are telling us over and over again to let it go, to cast the care, to pour out your heart, to release, so that healing can commence. So this morning, as we examine the conscience, as we ask God to do a highly personalized work in our lives, before we come to the table to remember Christ, to remember His sacrifice, to remember His death and resurrection, as we've been talking about throughout the course of this service, we are exhorted, we are commanded to take a few moments to be silent before the Lord and to leave these burdens at the foot of the cross. And my prayer all week has been for us as a church to walk out that door free. Free from the heaviness, free from the anxiety, free from the anger that we've been carrying around for way too long. We're going to take a few moments before we celebrate just to quietly pray. And I'm going to ask you right there in your pew, whatever you're struggling with, whoever you're struggling with, the circumstances, the people, the personal failures, whatever the case may be, to bring that to the cross and leave it there once and for all. That's where the beginning of healing starts. That's how it commences. So let's take a few moments today and allow, as Tolkien said, the grief not to darken our heart, but to produce within us a sense of wisdom. Let's take a few moments to pray.